Hi, everyone, and welcome back from summer. It's officially back to school, or at least back to school prep season for everyone across the country. We're here for an episode of Tuesday Tips, and I'm your host, Marin Smith. I'm the content manager here at Grow Schools, and as usual, we're here Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for 10 minutes discussing the biggest challenges facing school leaders. And this week, I'm welcoming my colleague Ashley for a discussion on open houses that drive enrollment. So, building strong relationships within the community is always essential for growth and success of schools. When it comes to marketing events in particular, they can make a world of difference. But setting a date on the calendar, it's just one piece of the puzzle. So I'm looking forward to hearing all your tips today, Ashley. So let's dive right in. First question is, how can schools create memorable open house experiences that stand out or differentiate them from other schools that families might be thinking about at this point, right before the start of the school year?
Yeah, I think making your open house an immersive experience as much as possible to really let families experience the school in action and what it feels like to be there during the school day. So if you can have students or a teacher lead a demonstration in the science lab, or if you can involve prospective students, like let them work on an art project or an art activity in the classroom. Just give families kind of a feel for the school culture, the energy in the building as much as you can when school is in session. And if you can't do that, if that doesn't work, we've also seen schools who will just, if they have a school video or if they've been able to take videos throughout the school year, just have, if you have the equipment, have a video up in the background with some B-roll showing, some of these moments, transitions, activities, anything that can kind of help families to visualize what their students' experience might be day to day.
I love that idea, especially when I imagine recruiting kids, depending on how early in the year your school year is, it might be hard to get organized around, getting that group of currently enrolled kids up and ready to do tours or whatever they might do. But if you can just kind of play a video on a loop, then people are still getting that vibe, that sense of what it's like to be at your school. So that's great.
Yeah, exactly. And you can mix it up, right? Maybe you can't get a group of kids every school tour, every open house, but if you do a couple throughout the year, you could, have video going at some of them. It's just more impactful than any scripted presentation from even the most engaging speaker, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I know, following up after these events is one of the most important things that, schools are thinking about. We have people come in, they get that vibe, they think, okay, this could be, on my list, or maybe a place where I could see, our family, because it's really where your whole family is going to be spending a lot of time, right? And in that space, in that building, and in that culture. So what have you seen as far as follow-up strategies that work best to kind of keep those families engaged when you do have an open house?
Yeah, I think making your post-event follow-up as personal as possible is really key. We have a school, I was just talking to the project manager that works with this school. They have the school leader call all the families who have RSVP'd to the open house prior and say, hey, I'm going to be at this event. I'm excited to meet you. And then, have them call afterward to kind of check in, or send a personal email from them afterwards to check in if that feels like too heavy of a lift. Those tactics still work. Follow-up emails, if you can't have staff, call everybody, then, we've seen schools put them into an email cadence where the student was interested in sports. Here's an email from the soccer coach. Here's an email from our dance teacher. Those kinds of things that are specific to what they were interested in, but still, and still ideally from a person. And then, even the old-fashioned, we've had schools who just will drop a thank you note in the mail and thank folks for coming out to the open house or the school tours. And that can go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those personalized touches, especially now that everyone's receiving so many emails, so many, even, I don't know, the number of communications that I get from the school where my kids are enrolled that feel automated. I think differentiating with that personal touch probably makes a huge impact when it comes to making that decision. So that's a great tip. I just want to take a quick pause and welcome those of you who are joining us a few minutes late, that we are here discussing how schools can partner for stability and growth through these kind of in-person back to school and open house type events to really drive enrollment at this point right before the school year is starting, or even after the school year is underway. Schools can still see late enrollments even after school's already in session. And I'm here with Ashley. So thanks again, Ashley, for being here. Yeah. You can catch us on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So we'll get back to our chat with the next question, which is one that you kind of already touched on, but I'm curious what other roles current students and families can play in open houses. You kind of mentioned, kids can be involved giving tours or handing out papers or whatever it might be. What about families? I'm thinking about even, parents who've taken on certain leadership roles at the school or who are helping, connect families and feel included and involved. Do you have any ideas there?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen schools who will pair up families if they have visiting families or, who they might pair them up with an existing family. I was just chatting with the team and they were sharing about a big, it's not specifically an open house that this school did, but it was a big back to school bash, and they had booths and activities and events and lots of fun things, kind of really trying to bring the community in. As well as prospective families, but they did also have a booth where it was, you could go talk to a parent, and they had another booth where you could talk to students and just ask questions and kind of hear from them. I think, so if you can, even if you can't, kind of emulate a day in the life at the school, if you can have a couple of enthusiastic students and parents on hand to kind of share their personal stories and chat with people and answer questions, that's just going to be more impactful, just having a conversation. It's really valuable. And again, if you can't do that in real time, then maybe you can capture some of that on video that you could show as part of your presentation, so they can kind of put some faces to the school community.
Yeah, those are great ideas. And I guess that leads perfectly into one of my last questions, which is, what is the call to action at these types of events? And it's going to depend, I'm assuming, on whether it is sort of an open house or sort of this back to school, which tends to sort of showcase like, hey, here's what we've done so far. What is it, trying to get contact information from people so you can stay in touch, or is there an opportunity to enroll right then and there sometimes at these events?
Yeah. I mean, I think we were just chatting about this. I think that it's really important to get contact information if you can before the event and get RSVPs. Some schools will do just open drop-in tours, drop-in open houses, because they think that's kind of a barrier. But if you can get RSVPs and get that contact info, then you can follow up with them even if they don't come. And then certainly getting contact information when they're on site. We've seen schools who will just have paper enrollment packets, or even better, an iPad or a Chromebook or something where they can actually complete that application right then and there, and somebody on hand can help with that. I think at this time of year, as we're heading into back to school, we really shift our messaging from like explore, learn more, here's some information, to putting a sense of urgency around it. So our messaging will really shift, and it's seats are filling up, save your spot. The first day of school is August 4th. Kind of just trying to push folks along. Earlier in the spring, we see the tours a little more casual, a little more like, here's some information, explore and learn a little bit more. But time is running out at this point.
Right. Couple seats left. Everyone that I've seen out there. Great. These are really, really great tips as we're heading into the start of the school year. So thank you for sharing all of those, Ashley. I know you have a lot of face time with schools. Can you talk about, I know we have a course that you were a part of putting together called the Grow Enrollment course that came out of a summit that we did with a lot of school leaders who attended. And there's one module in that batch that's available now on open houses and events where you go much more in depth Can you talk a little bit about that course and why it's valuable for school leaders?
Yeah. So the module, it's really bite-sized. It's really short, but it has a lot of really good tips that we've seen work for real schools. So a lot of examples of real schools who have put these kinds of these tactics in place to create impactful in-person experiences that really showcase their strengths and help them to build connections with families and their communities. So it's got ideas around planning your events, promotion, following up, that we've seen actually help schools to meet and even to exceed their enrollment goals. So from designing and your open house and timing it, the right way in the enrollment cycle to, again, kind of what we touched on with how to structure school tours, all the way through to, some ideas for follow-up and, that you might be able to implement pretty easily.
Awesome. Great. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, for those of you watching, you can learn more about enrollment marketing partnerships with us here at Grow Schools, or that Grow Enrollment course module that Ashley just described. That's free if you want to head over to growschools.com and check out our library of resources. So thanks again, Ashley, and to everyone who joined us today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.